So, round table. This is going to focus on the setting up and the running of a simulation facility from a technologist perspective. And I know they've each got their own little pitch that they're going to do, but what I'd like to do is just to introduce you to our round table. So, Lucy Bailey, University of Portsmouth. You may have seen her out in the vehicle out there. And Sarah Horton, General Medical Counsel in Manchester. And Indy Hare, who's University of West London, and Andrew Sykes from St George's University NHS Foundation Trust. So you're holding the mic, but you're not going first, Indy. Okay. Lucy, would you like to go first? Is that okay? Sorry, have you loaded them? Go on, tell me off. Right. Go on, Indy, up you come then. You can have the clicker. Up you go.
Thank you. Bear with me, guys. I'm not used to presenting. We're usually in the background setting everything up. Right. Get us going. What I wanted to show you guys is the story of UWO in simulation. We're based in the west of London, and we opened Paragon House up in 2007. And last year, we opened up another campus in Reading. These are just some of the facilities we have here at UWL. We have state-of-the-art ward areas. We have CAE simulators. We have Lairdale simulators. Our Lairdale simulators are used for basic life support and advanced life support. Our CAE simulators are used for everything else. And we have SMOTS AV equipment. We have ceiling-mounted and mobile cameras across both sites. Here's just a picture of two of our simulators in use. We try to use everything in simulation here, just to say that that's just a simulator, but also we like to use cannulation arms, injection pads, catheter models, just everything possible to make as much simulation as possible for our students. Here's our story so far. We bought the ECS simulators over in 2005. We moved to a purpose-built building in 2007 in London. We bought iStan in 2008. In 2010, we bought Metiman. In 2011, we had to close our Berkshire Centre down, and we merged both into our Paragon House, which is in London. But again, in 2016, we opened our Berkshire Centre again in Reading, and we bought an additional 2 Lucinas. Where are we currently in simulation? At the moment, we're using simulators across all programs. We have a volunteer patient scheme. We have online simulations. We use Safe Medicate. We have a birthing simulator, and we run OSCEs. And here's just a little video to show you where we are at the moment.
Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Shock advised. Stay clear of patient. Deliver shock now.
Oxygen away.
Press
All
the
clear.
orange button now. Shock delivered.
We ourselves have come a long way in simulation from having all the students surrounding around a bed and all trying to see what's happening with 2 students doing a scenario, to them now sitting in a classroom watching via a camera. But this is where we like to go next. We'd like to develop our volunteer patient scheme by involving local community groups and other students. We actually have our acting students. We're trying to encourage them to participate helping us out, and then we can actually help out by lending them our facilities for when they require it. We want to expand the use of simulation in all our programs, and we want to support and develop the use of simulations in practice for nursing students as much as possible and as advanced as possible. Just a quick picture of our UWL simulation team, and to me, the team that matters most, me and the technicians. Thank you for listening, and any questions, please?
We're going to leave the questions.
Till the end.
Yeah, till the end.
That was just rehearsed.
Okay, so next up I've got Andrew Sykes.
So I was given a 7-minute brief for this, so this is going to be nice and quick. So who am I? That's me. My name's Andrew Sykes. I'm the Senior Simulation Technician at St George's in London. I've been in the health service. This is my 33rd year in the NHS. I started at 18 as a nurse, and that's why I haven't got any hair now. This is me. That's in blue. That's the NHS, and that's me. That's in Greece. So I've run simulations both here and around Europe, and I've been in medical education for 12 years. It's been a long route through nursing, mortuary technician, departmental manager, and everything in between. I work at St George's, which is an acute care trust. It's a 900-bedded acute care and major trauma centre in the south of London. And it's also got on site the St George's University Medical School. So we do both undergrad and postgrad simulation and clinical skills. This is the simulation centre. We've got 2 simulation suites, high fidelity suites, a wet lab that takes 22 skill stations, a dental simulation suite, and a lecture theatre that holds 40. This is a bit deceiving though, because they're not static rooms. We run certainly at least three programs where every room is in use with a simulator in each one. So quite often we will use multiple simulators instead of standalone one in each room. So we do a variety of different things with our centre, so it's very adaptable. They said to me, what are the 3 sort of things that you would advise someone setting up a simulation centre? What should you be aware of when you're doing it? This is one of them. This is our clinical skills suite on the right. Oh, there you go. That's our clinical skills room. There's 22 students practicing on a bit of pig skin, doing a bit of suturing. But that's the same room made up into a 3-bedded ward that we use for medical acute simulation. So there's 2 simulators and an actor, so simultaneously running as a ward area, so the people who have to prioritise and manage their patients. So that's one thing, make the rooms flexible and ease of use. Future-proofing, I love this picture because I built most of this. So what we've got here is we've got the SMOT system, the viewing system up the top. We've got a very old system there with 1 static camera. We've got another camera here that's not in use and is dead. We've got the controller for one of the simulators. We've got 2 controllers for 2 other simulators, all built into that one old audio-visual style mixing desk. And that is future-proofing. So my advice is to think about the audio-visual side when you're future-proofing your sim centre, because that is the area where there are more advances than in the actual simulators themselves. Certainly in 12 years, in terms of technology, the simulators haven't advanced that a great deal. They're pretty much as they were 12 years ago when I started. But the audio-visual is a world away. And storage, look at this. I was almost embarrassed to put this up, but for every simulation suite you have, you need the double amount of storage. Yeah, there's loads of nodding heads there, and that's something that's not really thought about when you first designed a sim centre. But I would recommend, this is neat, so I would really recommend that you think about your storage capacity when you're designing a sim centre. So that's my 7 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah. getting a marvellous insight here as to all these different centres. It's always, as I said, it's always very exciting to take a little look into people's centres.
Okay, so I'm Sarah. I'm from the Clinical Assessment Centre at the General Medical Council in Manchester. So I've worked at the GMC for 4 years now. No formal medical training or qualifications, learnt it on the job. And I previously, before this role, managed laser clinics. So there's 2 team members within our team of 9 that do the same role as myself and Gemma, who's also here. And our role is primarily focused on the equipment, simulation, maintenance, setting up the stations. It's our team. So just a little bit of history about the Clinical Assessment Centre. So the function of our assessment centre, it was initially to facilitate the PLAB test. Now the PLAB test is a route to registration for international medical graduates. So these are doctors that have qualified outside of the EU and are seeking registration. So in 2010, the centre was moved to Manchester from London, and now we have a purpose-built clinical assessment centre. So it's purpose-built to run OSCEs. So the 2 main assessments that we run are the PLAB, which briefly explained, and tests of competence. So tests of competence slightly different than the PLAB test in the way that they're an OSCE for one doctor who's under investigation. So just to tell you a little bit more about the PLAB, it's a high stakes exam. So this is where we find our use of simulation differs quite a lot from others who will use simulation for teaching. We primarily use our simulators for assessment. So our simulation is set at the first day of Foundation Year 2. And we run an 18-station OSCE, 8 minutes in the station, 2 minutes reading time. So we make the clinical scenarios as realistic as possible. And we use role players as well that are experienced in medical role play. So our high fidelity simulator is used then to simulate conditions that we can't use our role players for. Because it's an assessment, we have to be very accurate. It's a live exam, so consistency is key for us. So by using our simulators, we can ensure that each candidate has the same experience and we can replicate that. So our stations using our high fidelity simulators have proven to be a really good discriminator against a good and bad candidate, and these stations have shown that they're very reliable stations. So important factors to consider when using simulation for assessment. We always make sure that we have a backup mannequin. So as I said before, it's a live exam. This is a candidate's high stakes exam, so it has to be right every time. We always make sure we have another mannequin to use should there be any issues. And we always carry out rehearsals, role plays on the morning exam. Examiners and role players calibrate. We do sound checks to ensure that before that exam begins, everything will run as it should be and everybody is clear of their roles and responsibilities. We also notify candidates that high fidelity simulators will be used. Now it is a given and they will expect it, but when we first introduced it, a lot of candidates wouldn't have been used to using them where they had trained. Test of competence, as I say, it's slightly different to the PLAB test. It's one doctor and usually around 12 stations. And these OSCEs will be set they can be set at any level, whereas PLAB will be the first day of Foundation Year 2. The stations that we can run can be much more complex for a test of competence. Also, there isn't the same time restrictions because there's only one doctor, one candidate. So it means that the transition from candidate to candidate, which needs to be very quick in the PLAB test, that's not necessary. So we can have more equipment in the room. And as I say, the station can be a lot more complex for the test of competence. We run, as I briefly mentioned, we run training for our role players and examiners. We have found that for our role players, voicing a mannequin or working with a mannequin is quite a different skill to just sitting in a room and role playing a patient. So we'll have a pool of role players that we will have trained to use the mannequins. As I say, we use lots of other equipment as well with our mannequins. We run pilot days as well to pilot our stations. And by the end of 2017, we will have seen over 3,000 candidates for the PLAB test. This is compared to just under 2,500 last year. We have a big pool of associates, so that's our examiners who will examine at PLAB and also make up the team for our fitness to practice. We always welcome visitors to the Clinical Assessment Centre, so anybody is welcome to come and visit us. Do let us know. You can speak to me, anybody else in my team that's here today, or send us an email. I'll be more than happy to have you. Okay, thank you.
Last but not least. There you go.
Hello everyone, I'm Lucy Bailey. I'm the Technical Manager from the Centre of Simulation in Health and Care based at the University of Portsmouth. I am not clinical in any way, shape or form, but I have spent nearly 20 years being a technician in higher education. When I started in simulation in 2006, I was a sole technician in a new simulation centre. So although I had technical experience, I had no simulation experience. It was all learnt on the job. And then as the centre grew, simulation was being embedded into a variety of curricula for different healthcare courses, and so we couldn't provide what we needed to in our space, so we were refurbished, extended and renamed in 2015. At that point we had about 3 techs, 800 full-time students over 6 courses. And then in December 2015 we submitted a bid to provide nursing education, and we were commissioned to fulfil this in January 2016. And we knew at that point that our existing simulation facility was not big enough, and so we would need to establish a brand new facility. So the top picture there is part of our new facility, and the bottom one is our simulation vehicle, which we've got with us today. And I was thinking about what to share today. I named this talk The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. So I'm going to start with the ugly, and that for me really was the time frame that we had to work to for setting up this new facility. From getting the commission in January 2016, we had just 12 months, and our new students started in our facility in January this year. So in that 12 months we had to design and build the centre. We had to employ all of the academic team, who they then had to write the curriculum. We had to employ the technical team. We had to purchase all the equipment and get it established, and recruit all 120 students to our first cohort. So what did we learn? You really need to have quite a good idea of what you're trying to achieve before you start. We were fortunate that we already had an existing facility, so we had experience of what worked for us, what didn't. So we were able to balance our needs versus our wants, quite crucial. But if you don't have that previous experience, you make use of the people in this room, go and see other centres, talk to those that have already been through it, what works, what doesn't. And I know as technicians, technologists, we do like to share that type of thing. And really have as much experienced technical input as possible, as early as possible in the planning phases for a new facility, because I came from a facility that had no technical input at all in its build, and that did cause us issues, and there were so many things that I would have changed in the first 6 to 12 months if I could have done. But having input into this new facility has really helped us, and things have gone a lot more smoothly with this next one. But be realistic, because we certainly had to change our plans several times. We were trying to fit into an existing building, and what we wanted wasn't fitting. The architect worked miracles, I have to say, but just be realistic with what you're wanting. And again, storage. There are 2 facilities now. I'm in the new facility, and we are the envy of the other facility because we have a storeroom and workshop, which is fantastic. Purpose-built mannequin storage really helps. And it's been a bit of a game changer, really, for the operational side of a facility. It just is nothing else that you could do that makes so much difference, certainly from a technical perspective. We ended up playing years of 3D Tetris in our old facility. We're just constantly moving things around. So the bad, sorry. The bad for me was within the 12-month time frame we were working to, we had a team of academics, 9 new academics started, none of them had been academics before, and only 2 had experience of simulation. So for me that was the bad, because we had to try and get people up to speed. So for me and my team, patience. You've got to treat them almost like students. Be patient with them, there are going to be a lot of questions. But we run a policy of no question is a stupid question. If you don't know the answer, it's not stupid to ask and to find out. But do be prepared for lots of questions and many repeats of demonstrations of how to do something as well. And really key is establish your protocols and your policies. Now, whether you as a technologist has any input into this, I don't know, but it's certainly a good idea to try. Policies for teaching within simulation, for briefing, for debriefing. Nicklin and Hspn both have really good sets of standards. They're a really good basis if you want to get involved in writing your policy. They deal with all sorts, but for us we added in kind of the do's and don'ts specifically within our facilities and the pitfalls. We ran half-day workshops with our academic teams to get them familiar with the process of simulation, understanding the educational theories behind simulation, and debriefing tools, paperwork requirement. From a technical perspective, just advising them how long in advance you need information, how long in advance you need a teaching plan or an equipment list or a risk assessment really does help. And standard operating procedures for your kit. If you get that written and you've done your training with the staff, you can then just hand them an SOP, let them practice, let them be the students. And then the good is the people. It's got to always come down to the people. Our contractors, our architect, academics and technician teams, we've been really, really fortunate. Our building contractors were amazing, and I know you don't hear that very often, but they really were. They went above and beyond, and actually they did win a Considerate Constructor Award for our site because they just helped us no end. So keep the momentum going in the planning phases and the building phases, and again our contractors were key to keeping those processes rolling. People should always be your greatest resource. That's a fundamental belief that I have, and a technologist academic relationship should be a partnership. And although I've said that having 9 new academic staff was bad, the upside of that is that they're also keen, they're all full of ideas, really enthusiastic. So we really tried to foster an encouraging culture to just really bring that forward, bring that out the best of them as much as we could. And the more receptive you are to your academic or faculty teams, the more likely they're going to reciprocate when you need them. And then technicians. So build a team with a technical mindset. All of my technicians have come on board at a junior grade, so none of them have had previous simulation experience. But if you can have someone with a technical ability, whether it's just good organisational skills and an eye for detail or great IT ability, you can learn the simulation side on the job. And certainly all of my team have done that. And that's it. So I hope that gives you an idea of some of the challenges that we've faced with establishing a new centre and a new team.
Okay, so 4 very different centres, but a lot of common themes, I think, have come from that. A lot of things that you can probably resonate with as regards what's happened in your facility or what is about to happen. Storage seems to be the big issue for everyone. So, any questions for our panel? Come on, you've seen all those 4 centres and you haven't thought, oh, how did they do that? Or how did they... Right, Adrian, go for it. Sorry. What do you mean? Yes. If you have a question, it'd be really helpful if you could just say your name, your role and your organisation. It's just that the camera won't pick up you, but it will pick up the conversation. Okay.
So, my name is Adrian Openshaw. I'm the Resuscitation Simulation Officer at Salford Royal in Manchester. My question is, we're part of a university teaching hospital as well, and a major trauma centre. How easy was it to deal with room bookings? Because part of simulation and university, there's only one simulation centre, and we're finding it very difficult sometimes to allocate training days and people taking slots in the calendar. How have you been able to deal with this in your area?
Well, at the University of West London, it's simple. I do the bookings myself.
Multitasking.
Yeah, what it is,
technician.
I understand exactly where you're coming from, and to get around that, just take, like, with simulation centre bookings, we deal with it. I personally deal with all the bookings. All the bookings come with me. I sit down with the lecturers if I need any more information, and we work out from there, because if somebody else does it who doesn't necessarily know how the floor works, it doesn't work out, especially when on the day you realise one class is bigger than another and that you want to swap them around just for the space, and then move the equipment about. You can deal with it. I mean, if it's through central room bookings, they might say, no, we booked this room, we're staying in here. But from our purpose, we just do the bookings ourselves to get around that. Sorry.
That's another job for you. Lucy, how does that pan out with University of Portsmouth?
We are covered centrally. All of our room bookings are done by central timetabling, so we don't have a huge amount of control. We get issued with our timetable, and because we deal with subjects as about 10 or 12 different subjects, and they have to then fit those sessions into the rest of their timetable, so we don't have much control at all.
So
which
two very different,
frustrating,
in universities,
Yeah.
how you're handling it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think for the, well, are you involved?
It's different. We've become busier and busier over the last 12 months, especially with taking on new work from the Royal Colleges. And the perennial problem of trying to negotiate which person goes into which room is one that's been there all the time. And we've been tried to become creative with that. So we've started using our mobile mannequins and moving them into other areas where we don't necessarily need audio-visual support with the cameras. So we try and select the area best suited to the teaching session, and move out those. We've had to be a bit more brutal and say to those sessions that started off using a little bit of simulation or a bit of clinical skills content, and then adapted over their time into a purely lecture-based, and we've had to move them out, and we've had to say, sorry, you can't use our centre anymore. And that's something that's happened much more over the last 12 months. So we've had to be a little bit more brutal and say, is this appropriate for our centre? And if not, we can't support you here in the centre. If you can find another area, we'll look to support you remotely, but we can't have you within the centre.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it does boil down to that capacity, and I think a lot of centres do. Well, I'm going to say, I'm guessing that this, if you're not using a bit of kit, do you need to be in the centre? Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting that message across sometimes isn't overly easy. Sarah, did you want to say anything? I know it's a little bit different, very different.
Where this clinical assessment centre is, we're actually in the GMC offices. So our centre is primarily for running OSCEs. So we don't have those same pressures of others needing to use it. At the same time, we do have meeting rooms within our centre, which we will use for quarantining our candidates. At one time, there was talk that central room bookings wanted to take over use of our meeting rooms, but that didn't happen because the priority is we need to be able to run our assessments, and we needed control over those rooms. So like you were saying, we will let some of our rooms out when the centre's not being used, which at the moment isn't very often at all, but we have full control over our centre, so it is a little bit different.
Yeah. Does that help? Good. Anybody? Oh, Amanda's trotting off.
Hiya, Tim Smale from Keele University. How much non-clinical setting-based environments do you work with? You know, for example, simulating a patient's home environment. And do you have your AV setups in those, or do you only have them set up really in your clinical-based environments?
At the University of Portsmouth, in our new nursing facility, we have a one-bedroom flat, and we have a GP surgery area and a care home area, and we've fortunate enough in the build had all the AV put throughout, so it was part of the plans. So each area that we have simulation activity has inbuilt AV, so camera recording and then tagging system as well.
We have a quick screen. It's a screen you pull out with a home environment on it. On one side we have an older fireplace looking, on the other side we have a bit more of a modern flat. It's on wheels. We have some of our AV cameras on wheels as well. We can move it wherever we need it, and we primarily use them for our mental health and learning disability scenarios because they are not so clinically based.
Andrew, how do you deal?
We don't use home environments at all. But I think the logical was what I was saying about making your rooms adaptable, and that's exactly what I was going to say. The quick screen sort of design is a really easy, not a cheap. They are not cheap by any means, but they are the most flexible way of creating an environment very quickly.
Yeah, is everybody aware of quick screens? It is quite a useful resource, but as you say, they're not cheap.
But it's not cheap.
Yeah,
That's
but you
its
get
drawback.
2 for 1, don't you? You know, I mean,
Yes.
you've got
That's
one.
right.
You've got 2 sides on
But
one screen.
you're talking thousands.
Yeah.
2.5
Yeah.
for one screen.
Yeah, 2.5 grand.
But we're also thinking of using these screens for our ODP. But if you think that those 2 screens might cost £5,000, and then you can also use that area for anything else, considering how much it would cost to actually get it out like a proper ODP, quick screen all the way.
Yeah, it does extend the flexibility of the room, doesn't it, basically, as to what you can do.
You can use it as whatever you want after.
Yeah, as long as you buy another screen.
Do you change out your furniture then with that for a home setting?
No, we've got one chair, nice
Okay.
comfy leather chair that the patient or the volunteer patient sits in, and no, we haven't actually thought about changing the chair, to be honest with you.
I mean, one of the courses I work with is physiotherapy, so there's more of emphasis of helping patients around the home environment and things like that. So it's okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of some of the smaller centres will tend to sort of just dedicate a corner of, you know, a room and put something behind which looks community type things. If they haven't got the quick screen, they just do make do as regards making that little corner. And if you've got a mobile camera, you're away, aren't you? But yeah, smaller centres just make do, a lot of them. Any more questions out there? Yes. To the back, Mandy, quick.
Hi, David Morgan from the University of Bristol. I just wondered, what are the key concept and issues about introducing simulation to new students and new academics?
Right, Lucy, I'll let you go first on that one.
Key concepts and issues.
Case for change.
Yeah, I think we were lucky with the staff that we had because they were a brand new team coming into a new course, a new environment, so they were very keen for whatever we had. And we've used them as a bit of a test case just on, not so much for simulation, but on how we actually work the backside of us and our record keeping and everything like that. So they don't know any different, which is refreshing. They don't have preconceived ideas that you have to break down. So I definitely think you need to have your plan of how you want them to be teaching within simulation, if you have an idea. As I say, our academic lead has written a policy for the centre and kind of laid out really this is how we want simulation to be used. Students, again, I think when they're brand new students, if they're coming into a course fresh and they have no preconceived ideas, almost whatever you tell them, they're going to go with. So we do a familiarisation session. I mean, our centre has clinical areas, it has home areas, so we do familiarisation sessions with the environments, with the equipment that they're going to use, with the mannequins that they'll be using, so they have an understanding of the differences between the mannequins. Some mannequins only have a pulse on one side of the body, some mannequins have it throughout, so we need to make sure that they're comfortable with actually what they're looking for before you put them into a situation where they're going to be doing it under exam conditions for certain. And we have an open access area where the students can come and practice whatever they want. I mean, we're with the nurses, they're less than 6 months into the course, so what they're actually using simulation for is very basic at this point in time, and that will grow and grow. But again, they will have sessions each week or allotted times each week where they can come and they can practice what they need to practice to get them up to speed. So if they have a certain weakness or weak area they're not confident in, they can come and practice on their own or practice with being recorded. So again, they can then take that recording away and see where they're at and compare perhaps to 6 weeks ago. Does that help? Okay.
Yeah. Anybody got anything else to add to that, Andrew?
I've got quite a bit to say about the preparation of students. And it's a working process that we've done over 12 years. 12 years ago when I first started, how the simulation would start is that your brief would be, there's an ill patient in bed 2, go and see him. And that was the culmination of all of their brief. And throughout the time that I've been doing this, we've worked on different models of trying to introduce students to simulation and to pre-brief, and we do a lot around pre-briefing our students now. And that can be on different levels, from a quite a basic introduction, but a bit more than there's your patient, to actually saying you're going to see a patient who has or is having an acute asthma attack. Does everybody know what the acute asthma guidelines are for a management of an attack? So our pre-brief, so we sit around with the team first of all. The other way we've done it now is we used to stand with the mannequin and go through the functionality of the mannequin and tell them, go through an A to E assessment and explain to them how the mannequin worked. But what we've discovered now is to actually get them to discover it for themselves. So at the beginning of a day, we do a treasure hunt. So they have a list of things to find, including functionality of the simulator and the environment. So when they go into the simulation, they're aware of the environment. And when things go wrong, when we don't pre-brief correctly, things can go wrong very badly. Last week we had a nursing student fit because she was so stressed out from her simulation that she fitted and collapsed. And that, in 12 years, I must admit, is the first time we've ever had that. But we've had people with asthma attack. We've had people start crying. And that's not learning. You don't learn when you're in that state. You shouldn't get to that state. It's a real concern. It is a responsibility on us to understand that when we're placing people in a simulated environment, it's as real as you're going to get, other than in that acute situation. So I'm a great advocate of properly pre-briefing, properly preparing students before they go into a simulation.
Yeah, and I'm quite interested to ask, really, is it some of, obviously, yourselves who perhaps do the orientation or the induction or the preparation? Is that very similar across a lot of organisations? Are your technicians, your technologists involved with orientations, inductions and things like that? Because I know in previous, sort of 5-6 years ago, it was more faculty
Absolutely.
role or,
Yes.
or whatever, but I think it has come more
Yeah.
to technicians and technologists, haven't it, to step up to that role?
Yes.
Yeah. David, does that help? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Go for it. When you've got the mic.
The next question we need in the back of the room again. Okay.
Oh, that's cruel. Did you hear that, Mandy?
Yeah. So my name is Jochen Vollmer. I'm working for CAE Healthcare out of Mainz, Germany. And I have a question linking your profiles to what you said in your keynote earlier. So you have a very diverse background, some with clinical, some without clinical backgrounds. Also what you do in your centers is different from assessment to, say, undergraduate students. How much do you see your roles reflected in what ASPE, for example, is proposing on the professional registration first? And secondly, if you had to write a job description for somebody replacing you, what would be the most important elements?
Wow. Right. So, should we take the first question first?
No comment, that's homework.
No. As regards your roles and professional registration. Go on in.
Professional registration, I do feel it's a good thing. You know, we will take this back to our bosses and speak to them about it. It gives you that extra bit, yeah. You know, does that make sense? That feeling
Right.
that you've
See?
been, you've been.
You grew 4
Yeah.
inches, Indy.
You know, oh, my head's going to hit even more stuff now. But it's just the fact that you feel that you've been appreciated as well, because as we said, this job is developing over the last 10 years. I've been in simulation centre for the last 15 years, and I've been in simulation itself for the last 6 or 7, because I was admin before, and as I've just learnt on the job. If I tell you a funny story, I didn't even know male catheterization was possible when I first saw a model. I went, someone's been messing around. They put a, catheter in the male. They went, no. I went, no, nothing goes in. You know. Ooh. I thought, ooh. When I felt, you see, but now, when I remember when my wife was having our second child, I'm like, oh, I know what this is. Oh, I know what this is. I know what this is. And until I got the old elbow in the thing, just worry about me, mate. But yeah, it's a recognition that, it should be taken forward. But obviously that's for our bosses to decide.
It is to a certain degree, but it's how you take it back to them as regards the support that you need to go forward. And, the credibility rubs off on them as well as regards that quality mark, that quality indicator.
And I do agree, like, with earlier, like, the simulated operated specialist or some sort of word. I mean, I was happy with simulation technologists till this morning, because I don't want to be down there.
Like the SOS.
I don't want to be down there, but long as,
Your fault,
but
Tim.
I do agree with having one job title for all of us who are technicians, so that we know what we're doing, and other people will know what we're doing if they see that job title.
Yeah, I think it's that those broad titles, isn't it? Those different titles. It's probably confusing to a lot of people, and I think that is a step that we need to make across the board. So as regards the first staying with the first question.
It's funny that when I was thinking about this, and we've spoken many times, Jane, about professional registration, up until today, I was completely happy with professional registration. Until today, when I was thinking about what's happening within my department, and the push for extra staff, and those staff being apprentices, are being people being taken on different schemes, which is co-funded by the government. My fear is that we push a ceiling on the pay of technologists, and that centres will just simply turn around and say, we can't afford a professionally qualified technologist, we'll settle for something else. So there's, and this is really something that I've really only thought about in the last week, when we've been started to be pushed towards taking on staff which aren't full-time and aren't paid totally by our trust. Now I'm in an acute trust, so I don't know what it's like for universities, but I've got a fear that that we're pushing ourselves into a place where centres will push back, and but it's a bit of a downer of a note, but it's a fear I have. But in terms of should we be professionally registered, I think ultimately it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think a qualification alongside it would be really useful, practical qualification. We've talked about MVQs, I know, in the past, and there's MVQs out there that kind of fit but don't totally fit. But I do have that fear, and also we also disenfranchise those that have an acumen for doing this, but not the written qualification to go along with it. They may not have A levels. They may have just come out of a college course on something else and fancied having a go, but are actually, in their private life, very good at technology. They play around with computers in their home life, and it's just a day. I think there are dangers along with this that we've got to be careful about when we do this. That's my only fear.
Yeah, and I do see your fears, because it's a lot different in the NHS. Well, I won't say it's a lot different, but we are becoming more and more aware of how the NHS is impacting all the issues that the NHS has is actually issuing on the jobs. It's issuing not only on the nurses and the medics, it's actually right down into the educational side in the acute trusts. I'd like to think that there will be, and there always is, isn't there? There's periods of time where your concerns could be quite warranted, and I think we've just got to go with it. I think we can't sort of stand back and wait now. We've got to a point. And I think if the repercussions, if the impact of it is, like you say, then we've got to ride the storm a little bit.
I'm just worried that trusts are looking to be far more creative about who they take on into the technologist role, partly because they undervalue it.
Yeah, but I think if you look at apprentices, and I know we've talked about apprentices, when we first started talks with the Science Council, one of the things that came apparent was that an apprentice that had worked at level 3, and obviously this was around the time when we did the Yorkshire and Humber pilot for clinical skills and simulation apprentices, and they were working, some of them, not all, some worked at level 2, but for those who worked at level 3, their achievement, their MVQ level 3 actually put them on the level for RSci Tech. So that was their achievement, actually already was their stepping stone to register scientists. So you could say that apprentices can also be very much sort of in there going for it, as as could be the others. Because bearing in mind,
I'm just worried from the trust side that they're looking to save money.
Yeah, and it will always
education is a department apart from the mandatory. They don't feel they have to fund. Yeah. And that's a worry going forward.
But I do think we just need to push it,
no,
because we have to see how it pans out.
Absolutely.
Don't we? And it is that thing in numbers. If we don't push for the numbers to actually be registered, if we don't push for those numbers, if it's not a sort of joint effort, it will potentially fall by the wayside. We need the numbers to actually make it work, so that you don't stay as those lone people. There is actually quite a considerable amount of you who, manage the registration. Right, James, you have the mic.
Hi. Sorry, am I allowed to just add to this conversation? Just thinking about what Andy was just saying, but what we noticed over our journey in the last few years, there is already that massive variation already exists in trusts trying to get around these things of paying. I mean, when we first went to our first ever sort of technical gathering, one of the sim ghosts a few years back, and we met Jane and everything, the variation in banding across people doing very similar things is already huge. And actually, I would have to agree with Jane that having that standardization would help bring it together rather than force it the other way, because these things are kind of already happening. Although in South London, I know we're South London colleagues, but across the whole country, there is already that massive variation. So, and people are already going in really low with the banding. So I would hope that actually it would encourage that to lift everyone together, like in a pathway. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, James, with that. The opportunity should not be missed.
Hi, it's Val Dimmock from Homerton in Hackney. I'm the simulation lead there. Just to add to the conversation again, can we not use this as an opportunity so that we start developing apprentices and develop a proper career pathway with qualifications for this particular profession?
I agree entirely, and that, to be quite honest, when we ran the pilot apprentice in the Yorkshire and Humber, that was the hope. That was the hope that that would be the first of many. But unfortunately, pilots being pilots, we learnt loads, but HEE were not willing to fund anything else further than, you know, the pilot that we ran. We had 9 apprentices at the end who achieved it. It was very square peg round hole, because we're back to that little known profession. You know, what do we use? We use the laboratory associated technical activities for the competency framework. It sort of fitted, but not really. And then it was an applied science for the knowledge side. So it was very square peg round hole. But trying to gather the modules, the MVQ stuff together that actually reflects this sort of multifaceted job, that it's very hard, you know, because you've got to have a little bit of this and you've got to have a little bit of that. So it is quite hard. And until it's actually, you know, we may get to a point where the recognition happens and then they suddenly think, well, actually we do need something for this. Or let's have a couple of universities that actually step up and say, right, we'll do a cert ed, we'll do a diploma in this. But again, it's numbers. It's got to be a collective, you know, something should be and is definitely needed, but it's how it becomes apparent. Thanks, Val.
Hi, am I there? My name's Lisa Matthews. I was just thinking there's an opportunity to create or to enable perhaps a gold standard. If you produce organic food, you want a soil association grade mark. So actually there's something about, if we're in healthcare education and the NMC and various other professional bodies want more of that, and they want more of that within their education curricula, then actually there's something about helping them getting them to help us to create a driver, which is actually, if you're coming in to have your NMC course evaluated, where's your aspect, where's your people with the professional regulation? If you're providing simulation, where's the skill base within your team? So there is something about the ability of utilising the courses that we work with and for, actually to help us bring up the ability of saying, well, where is it? You know, where's your quality certificate? Where's your staff? So actually there's some partnership working there that we can use for one to become the driver for the other, I think.
Actually, the Hspn standards for simulation-based education in the theme for technical personnel works through that as regards, you know, the expectations within the standards of personnel working alongside faculty.
But I think if you can make it that the academic, I think if you can make it that the academic or the trust institution understands that this makes what they deliver more marketable. You have to think of their drivers. So if we're saying, actually, if you can say you've got staff on your team with this qualification and you provide this additional level, or you know, you can demonstrate the skill within your team, then actually that rings bells for them. When they're doing open days, when they're selling their services, which is what they have to do, people pay for their education now, trusts pay as well to develop their staff. This is the driver, and we have to make them see that this helps them in order for them to help us, I think.
Thank you. Right, I think we've got one more question, and this one may have to be the last, I think.
Sorry, it's not a question, it's just a comment related to that. When we put in programs for revalidation, we always have to include our CVs of the people that are teaching on that program. So if we started to put in the CVs for our SOSs as well, that would start to make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. I think everyone will agree that would be really good, you know, because that brings the recognition as the SOS as part of faculty. And that's the big thing, isn't it? You're not just that person, you are part of faculty. Right. Well, I think. Oh. Oh.
I'm Christine. I'm actually from hospital in Coventry, UHCW, and my title is Assistant Simulation Practitioner. That was a title that was put out 2 years ago. It was a new role, and I took it on. I'm from an ITU nursing background, so I kind of do a bit of the technical side. I role play as a nurse. I operate the mannequins, obviously not role playing and operating at the same time. I write scenarios, making sure that all the relevant guidelines are there, up to date, all the relevant documentation like ABGs, BBGs, and all of that, ECGs, X-rays, whatever we need are there. So I don't really know what I fit as. I kind of feel a bit technical. I feel a bit faculty. I feel a bit nurse. So
yeah, and there are lots of people
yeah,
in
I
the
think
same
there's a lot
position
of people
as you.
that
Yeah.
don't have a definitive role. I do room bookings, you know, same issues as you have, trying to get the rooms, even though they are the simulation suite at the hospital. We don't own the rooms, but we have to book them. So I kind of do a bit of everything. So I don't know how you standardise that into registering me.
As regards registering, can I ask if you've kept your NMC registration? Yes, so yeah, it's a dual registration. There is no set sort of percentage of time spent doing the technical side of your activities to all the other. It's more, as I said earlier, it's that narrative, it's that experience, it's the skills that you use that you could actually complete the competency report. And you may find that when you actually, if you started to go through it, you may think, actually, I couldn't find an instance, I couldn't find a narrative that would actually complete this. So it may be worth looking, but you may find that it's, you know, the multifaceted role that you're doing, you haven't got concentrated skills, knowledge for what their expectation is. Yeah. Okay, I think that might have to be it. I'm getting looks.
But people are getting jittery as well.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you so much for that. It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah. And thank you to these four. I just stood and chaired it, so thank you for taking part and bringing your experiences and your skills and answering all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a few things before you all head off. A couple of just general questions. A few things we've been asked is, does the colour of the CAE top mean anything? No, we just have a catalogue and we can have any colour we want. So, okay, hence the lots of different colours. We've already been told next year maybe we should try and be in the same colour, so anyway. Second thing, everybody that attends today will get an online evaluation form which you can complete anonymously. This will be sent out, if not at the end of this week, beginning of next. When you submit that, you then get a link to print off your certificate. So we're doing a sort of carrot and stick. If you don't complete your evaluation, you get no certificate. And the same will be for tomorrow, because people have been asking us. It's already lined up, ready to go, but we wanted to do that. The third thing is that today we've had a really interesting day. Started off by Robert, and then Tim got very passionate about SOS. I'm smiling, he's at the end of the room. And then we had a sort of meet the whole team and meet the technologies, and I've got quite a sense of people saying, oh, I didn't know you did that. And again, please play with all of the stuff. And then we had some amazing concurrent sessions from some really inspiring people. A lot of them are still here. And then I think what was really great is to have Jane and 4 amazing technologists. I'm going to go with that for the moment. Andrew, Indy, Sarah and Lucy. And we chose them for geographical, north and south. And also they work in very different areas. And for me, the work that the GMC and their assessment centre, I think some of the rubrics and things they're doing, those of you that are thinking about assessment, speak to Sarah, Gemma, Steve, Marina, they're all here. The way they really look after the candidates and this whole notion of being very high stakes, it's certainly worth a visit. And again, Lucy's team again with her bus outside, and Andrew I've known since I've been in simulation. And also I want to thank Indy for the slide of me about 10 years ago. I was like, oh my God, wasn't it? You did, but I didn't realise it was that horrific. But more importantly, tomorrow we've got another great day, but in about 28 minutes and counting, fluid, food, lots of time to play. I am told that maybe from a forest not so far away, someone might be coming. That's all I know. So please have a great evening. Please stay. There's going to be loads of food and just chill out and really use this time. So thank you, everyone.